Well, welcome everyone. We're going to give everyone a few moments to join, and we'll go ahead and get started with this webinar. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Bill Gates, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mechanics of Democracy Laboratory at Arizona State University. Was previously on the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors from 2017 through 2024. And one of our initiatives that we have developed at the Mechanics of Democracy Lab is the AI and Elections Clinic. We're really excited to have started this earlier this year as a partnership with the Elections Group. And it actually came out of some recommendations from the Arizona Secretary of State's Office AI and Elections Security Advisory Committee that they formed last year. But the AI and Elections Clinic at ASU is really designed to be the place that tracks, nudges, slows if appropriate, and shows how artificial intelligence and elections are interacting in the years ahead. So today we have a fantastic all-star panel that has been assembled to have a discussion of AI and elections, the latest and greatest in that field. So first of all, we have Gretchen Reinemeyer, who's the General Registrar and Director of Elections in Arlington County, Virginia. We also have Ricky Hatch. Ricky is the County Clerk and Auditor in Weber County, Utah. We're thrilled to have one of our partners, Ethan Chumley. Ethan is the Director of Security and Emerging Technology with the Elections and Societal Resilience team at Microsoft. So that's quite a title, and thrilled to have Ethan with us today. And finally, we have TJ Pichet, who's the Director of Partnerships with the Elections Group. So again, thanks to everybody for being here today, and particularly excited to have elections officials on the ground with us today. Ricky and Gretchen, and Gretchen, let me throw the first question you today. We know you're someone that has used AI in elections. What inspired you to go down this path and kick the tires on AI as it relates to election offices?
Yeah, so like most people, a friend got me involved. No, my sister started using AI. I would say she was probably an early adopter, and she would talk about how she was using it for her work. And so I was presented with a unique challenge in our office. We were the first jurisdiction in Virginia that had to implement ranked choice voting, and we had to develop an outreach plan. So I went ahead and threw the question to ChatGPT of what would an outreach plan for ranked choice voting voter education look like, and that's kind of how I got my start using AI in our office. So
That's great. And Ricky, you're known as another one of the leaders out there, definitely as it relates to AI and elections. And in fact, proud to have you as a member of our advisory council of the AI and Elections Clinic at ASU. How about you, Ricky? How did you first get involved in using AI in your office?
Well, I was appointed to be a member of the task force for the National Association of Counties. They had an AI task force, and it started a couple of years ago. And we met with business leaders and tech leaders throughout the country, and I was just shocked at what they were doing. Just blown away, and thought, wow, there's so many things that we can use. Of course, and then I became a personal user of ChatGPT shortly after it came out. And of course, the first thing I used it for was to write a limerick for a coworker, a humorous limerick. And I was so blown away by that. I thought, wow, what else can this do? And so it just came out swinging, and I loved it ever since.
Yeah, and when you think about AI and the potential, and we're definitely focused on that at the AI and Elections Clinic, because I think all of us would agree in elections we've been kind of taught to fear AI, and and certainly be concerned about the potential, dangers of it. I'm kind of curious if, first of all, you guys could talk about what excites you most. Again, I'll go to Gretchen. What excites you most about the use of AI in your office?
So we really, it's like having an extra employee, as I like to call it. We call it employee number 10 because we're a small office. We only have 9 employees. So we have employee number 10. And when I just get stuck, because there are those days where I'm really tired and I can't, my brain's just not working as well as it used to, where I can just throw a prompt into AI, see what it says, and that'll just get the ball rolling on it, on kind of, yeah, getting the juices flowing on some of the challenges that we have. So, yeah, that's what excites me most. Yeah.
And by the way, we do have a Q&A, so if you guys have questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to get through as many of those as we can. How about you, Ricky? What excites you most about using AI in your office?
The thing that excites me the most is, from what I've seen, AI is so powerful that really the only limitation is our creativity and how we can use it. I often say that us using AI right now is the equivalent of using a nuclear power plant to power a toaster. I mean, it does a great job, but I know how to use the toaster, but what I want to know is all of the other stuff. And there's so much out there. I'm really excited to see the various applications being implemented, and it's coming so fast. It's literally unlimited possibilities of how we can use it to make it more efficient for us, more secure, our processes, and just better all the way around.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think that is a great point, that it's changing so much, and so we have to continue to stay on top of that. Okay, not to be Debbie Downer, but Gretchen, what concerns you most about the
I
use of AI in your office?
Yeah, no. So I think when using AI, you definitely need to be cautious about obviously the data that you're putting into any of the AI models. And so my kind of golden rule is, if it's publicly available on a website, then AI probably already has it, so it's okay to share with it and get more information about it. The other thing that I've noticed, obviously, AI is only as good as the information that it has available to pull information from. And so we were fact checking recently an exhibit for our library that they are running. And they had like just things that were not true in this exhibit, but was listed on a Wikipedia page without a source, and AI had pulled that information out of that Wikipedia page. But anyway, so like I said, it's, if you can't get back to the original source, then you have to be very careful with what AI tells you. So.
Yeah, and Ethan, I want to ask you, because Gretchen's kind of raised this issue about data protections, and it's obviously critical for all people in government, but particularly for elections officials. From your position at Microsoft, what suggestions do you have for offices that are looking to best protect that sensitive information?
Yeah, thanks, Bill, and hey everyone, thank you for having me on today. Uh, for those that are either getting started with AI tools, or for anyone that may have already gotten started and you consider yourself maybe sort of an intermediate user, I think it's important to understand that AI is sort of an overarching category of technologies and an overarching category of tools. And just like any other tool that you would use on your computers, that you would, any other website that you would visit, there are some of these tools that are better suited for things like data privacy and data security than others out there, and they're not all created the same. So I think by and large, if you're looking to get started with AI and you want to do it in a way that protects the privacy of the data, so that the information that you're uploading into the tool doesn't go, say, to the company that might be hosting the tool, or what we would call model training. So sometimes the data that you upload into AI tools can be learned from, and in some cases, some of the insights might be able to be shared with some other users. That's not necessarily always what you want to happen. Really important to take a careful look at the privacy and security policies that these various tools have in place. there are absolutely ways that you can use certain AI tools securely and privately so that your data remains your own. I'm at Microsoft. We have an AI tool called Copilot that, by and large, if you're using the work provided M365 Copilot, it's treated with sort of the same data security and privacy that your email is. So while it might be a cloud service, it's still something that, you know, Microsoft is not going to look at your data. It's not going to be shared with anybody else, and sort of treated that same way. There are others that isn't to say, and to pitch for Microsoft, there are many others. Google's Gemini. There are settings on some of the ChatGPT enterprise or government or business plans, or Anthropic's Claude. It's just important to make sure that you have the right settings set, and that you're using the right tools for the task, because not all have the same. Maybe some have heard of a company called DeepSeek. That is a tool that I do not recommend using. They do not have the same sort of privacy guarantees for their cloud hosted service.
Great insights, Ethan. Thank you for that. And that's something that all of us who do use AI need to be really attuned to. So we've definitely, you know, talked about some of these concerns with protecting data. Ricky, other concerns that you have with the use of AI as you're rolling that out in your office?
I actually think the biggest concern is that we're going to lose our ability to think and reason ourselves, and we're going to over rely. And that's kind of how it is with any tech. Anytime you learn a new technology, if you don't understand the underlying principles that you're talking about, then it becomes a machine that does it. And when that breaks down, you're in trouble. So I'm worried, and I've seen it myself. A new piece of legislation comes out, or a new executive order or something, and I immediately go to ChatGPT to give me a summary. And what I need to do is read it first, and then, or do the summary first and then read it in detail. I just don't want to lose my cognitive basis and ability to reason and think as a human, because the AI is pretty darn good at it, but it's certainly not perfect.
Yeah, what a great point, Ricky. I've heard somebody describe AI as like the best, you know, intern, the brightest intern you've ever had, right? So brilliant, excellent insights, but we've got to continue. I'm sure everybody's heard this concept of you got to have that human in the loop, to make sure, because there are hallucinations, and I think we all know, particularly in elections, that, you know, jurisdiction-specific information may be incorrect, there may be hallucinations, and we're all working so hard to make sure that the public trusts us that we certainly don't want to, you know, use AI and then end up losing, you know, or damaging that trust with the public. Definitely, you know, definitely a challenge. So TJ, you're all over the country all the time. You're talking to elections officials every day. What's kind of your sense of where election officials are as a group on AI as far as adoption, familiarity, etc.?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I think if you had asked me that question like 3 months ago, my answer would have been one thing. A month ago, my answer would have been a different thing. And I think that just shows, like, you know, what an exponential rate some of these things are being adopted or considered. I think, you know, generally still, even with like that big growth, folks don't have a good understanding of these systems. I think mentioning what Ethan said about kind of AI as an overarching set of systems, not just a single thing, I think that's a really important thing, and a really important distinction that we need to, as a community, figure out what the implications of it are. I think, you know, the distinction between AI-enabled tools that many of us already have or are getting without our choice versus larger systems is something that has to be explored. So all of that to say, I think it's changing every day. Usually folks don't have a great grasp, but hopefully through some of these efforts, we can get them in a better position.
So there's one one question in the Q&A, which is, you know, for every one good guy or good gal out there that's using AI, this person posits that there's 1,000 bad guys using AI. I'll kind of throw that out to the group in general. Anybody like to respond to that and sort of what we can do to protect ourselves in that situation?
I mean, I'll jump in and say that I think having a baseline literacy or understanding of what some of these things are and what their capabilities are is the first step. I don't think that these technologies, whether you're an excited adopter or a skeptical person related to them, I don't think you can put your head in the sand one way or another. And I think having an understanding of what they can do, how they can do it, and the scale at which it can be done is a really key piece in having a defensive posture that maybe will be effective against the 1,000 bad guys.
I'll add in a little bit too that I think it depends what and who you mean by bad guys in this case, right? A decent portion of what I spend my time on is looking at sort of more classical cybersecurity and cyber defenses. And I think right now, of course, adversaries and bad actors can use AI tools to make themselves more efficient as well. Things like writing convincing phishing mail, I think is something that gets a lot of airtime. But our evidence right now would say that it's asymmetrically AI is actually helping the defender right now. It's great at anomaly detection and trend spotting, and finding something happening on a network is a lot easier right now with the help of AI to aid the good guys in this case. I think that's one way of looking at good and bad guys. Now, for those of you that aren't sort of network security professionals and are just trying to run good elections, I think in large part it's thinking about what you can control and what you can't control. There might be bad actors that are using AI to do something, but you probably already have those contingency plans in place, right? You are probably already taking digital security training for your staff and knowing how to recognize phishing emails and suspicious links. AI doesn't change the fact that you oftentimes have to click on a link or download a malicious attachment for a cyber attack to be successful. If you think of the ability of AI to do voice calling, it doesn't change the fact that you probably already get scam calls to your call centers today, right? Continue to run the same playbooks, focus on what you can control, maybe be prepared for a slight increase in volume of some of these attacks, but just continue to run the same robust security measures that you're already doing today would be my advice.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Another big topic I think that has come up in some of these gatherings with elections officials are AI chatbots. Curious if anyone has any experience with those and what their thoughts are, both positive and negative on the use of AI chatbots in the context of elections.
So Arlington has had a few different chatbots deployed on our website over the last several years, starting with very clunky ones that were difficult to program. Every question, you had to put in every question and generate every answer manually. We've now shifted to one where the way they describe it to me is it works more like a web crawler. So it's going to crawl across the Arlington domain to help answer those questions. And it is, in the test we've done with putting election questions into it, it is pretty powerful and pretty accurate. But with that said, once again, it's only as good as the information that is on your website. So if we had buried in one web page and like the metadata of the website, an old registration deadline, and it took us forever to find exactly where it was getting that bad registration deadline information. So like I said, you have to be careful about what old data might be out there. Make sure you're archiving pages or updating as you go. Because it's only going to be as good as the information that it's used. But yeah, I highly recommend you check it out at arlingtonva.us because it is a pretty slick tool that they've rolled out. So
yeah, I agree. We have a chat bot on our website, and it's the old version. It's not an AI thing at all. And to program that using the keywords, it's just clunky and it takes a ton of work. I had a vendor say, hey, you want to try this one? It's AI. We just set it up. It took them, all of 10 minutes to create this and link it to our website. And it was infinitely better than the one that we're using. And so I see a ton of benefit on that side from, of course, from the interaction with the voter. And you've got to be super careful to make sure you're getting the right stuff. And Gretchen was spot on, because our websites are spaghetti code all over the place, sometimes 10 years old. But the amount of effort required to get this basic AI chatbot up and running is, 1% of what it used to be.
Well, thanks for those insights. Here's another great question in the Q&A is, so for those of us who, like for you, Ricky, you were talking about, getting started with AI. That's great. You start to get comfortable. But then for you and Gretchen and anyone else, how do you then extend that to the whole office? How do you get other people to get comfortable and buy in to AI in the office as well?
It's a good question. And it's really that way with any technology. My suggestion is dip your toe in. Just try little bits here and there, see how it works, and be methodical. For a long time, I had 3 chat bots up at the same time, and I would put the same prompt in each one, and just to see how they would respond. And I wanted to see which one I liked better, and but I could also see which one was more current, and just play with it. Treat it like a new car. You get a new car and you want to play with it and see how fast it goes, how sharp it turns, but you're not gonna go so fast or turn so hard that you're gonna crash. So I just say baby steps, take it a little bit at a time, and keep challenging it and pushing it until you're comfortable, and then you can move to the next step.
Yeah, and what I do is, like I said, we've called ours employee number 10. So when somebody asks a question, it's like, I don't know, let's see what employee number 10 says. So we just kind of turn it back to them. So, yeah.
Can I just dig in a little bit, Ricky, on what you were saying, the sort of, put your training wheels on before you ride the whole bike? I think it's super important when, if you're thinking of getting started with this, especially in elections, maybe more so than almost any other industry here, is to, playing around is one thing, having it write a fun song or a poem or what have you. But when you're ready to get serious and use it for like a real office purpose, start slow and start safe. There are lots of really high risk use cases that I can think of that would be super impactful that AI could help with in an election process. But please don't start there, right? Start in a place where you're comfortable. Have it write your tweets and your social media posts so that you can review them and take a look and get a sense of, how do these tools behave? They're just like a real employee. Employee number 10 also has some quirks. You got to talk to it in a certain way. There are ways that you can prompt these tools to get better responses or worse responses, and have those learnings and those failures, if you will, on something really low risk to start with, on planning documentation, on social media content creation, and just some sort of basic back office functions before you try to take on the really high risk. Is AI ready for signature verification? I don't know, maybe, but that's a really risky place to start. So let's do something else first, would be my advice there.
And I think continuing Ethan's metaphor of the training wheels, maybe you never take the training wheels off. You always have some form of the training wheels, or using another metaphor, the bowling bumper lanes that ensure that you don't go off the rails. And I think too, as it relates to individuals within your team, something that we've noticed as we give presentations across the country is not everybody is excited about the proliferation of AI. And they have like very good and very well-meaning reasons, philosophical, environmental, et cetera, for having those convictions. So, just like you would be respectful of other convictions, I think you do need to keep in the back of your mind, even though there are many of us who are excited adopters, that's not the headspace that everybody's in, and that deserves its own consideration.
Yeah, it's a great point, TJ. And to that, we have a question about some of the regulatory burdens or other burdens that elections officials are facing as they're trying to use AI. I think we come across this in almost every gathering we're at, that there may be certain counties that have locked down, or prohibited the use of AI in their jurisdiction. Can you guys talk about maybe experiences you've had with that, or advice that you might have with elections officials who might be facing that's a resistant IT team in their jurisdiction?
I guess you just never contradict the IT team, right?
That's right.
I will say that we've heard from folks who are in that situation, and they will very candidly say, well, my county IT doesn't let me use it, but I've got it on my cell phone, or I've got it on my iPad, and I'm using it anyway. So I don't think that the rules for use change. I mean, I think that on a personal device, you have to be even more careful if you're, working with data, et cetera, and you really shouldn't be. But all of those things understood, people are going to use these tools regardless, understand the implications of it, and kind of get them into a posture of knowing versus otherwise.
So I'm very fortunate to have a forward-thinking IT department. And so as the changes with the models were becoming more available, they've made it very clear that don't do this, you can do this. And they've been very proactive inside the entire Arlington County organization of communicating what we can and can't do. But what I like to do is also a safeguard, because I don't have an IT background, is when I start to do something that might be a little risque, I just run it through them to make sure, like, are the necessary safeguards in place for when we start doing this project. Because I still need to loop them in on what I'm doing. And I think just having that open dialogue, they know that I'm going to check in with them before going that next step in using the tools they've made available to us. But they do want us to use these tools here. So we haven't had that challenge necessarily.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Work closely with your IT department, and they need to know, like TJ said, people are going to use it no matter what. And it further underscores the importance that this is an assistant. The AI is an assistant who does exactly what you ask it to do, and it's very smart, but it's very dumb at the same time. I mean, it has access to tons and tons of information, but you've got to check their work every time to make sure it's accurate. And as far as state legislation or federal legislation, God, I don't know what you do other than educate them on how you intend to use it and how that would fit or not create risk or unnecessary risk. But really, I think the biggest roadblock right now is an IT department or a county official who is so worried about it that they just shut everything down and can't use it.
One of the alliterative phrases that we use when we talk to folks is augmentation, not automation. So touching on some of Ricky's points, like always having that human backstop, where if it is a chatbot, reviewing the logs occasionally and saying, oh, this, to one of Gretchen's points, oh, this is pulling information from the 2014 general election. That is not right. Where is it getting it from? Of course, I think Gretchen probably maybe had the benefit of somebody saying, like, hey, your chatbot is screwing up, so you didn't have to look at the logs. But yeah, I just think that always have that human backstop, always have those systems in place to be able to audit and review.
And to the point of these concerns about, like Ethan said, there's some really powerful potential use cases, but don't make sense in a live environment. That's why we're working with our partner Microsoft and with our AI experts at ASU to develop a sandbox where you can send your tools, you can send your questions, your your wildest dreams. And we can work on these things at ASU for you and see, if they are possible, what the concerns are with it, because we understand, elections is just too important to be testing out, the bleeding edge of AI in a live election. But that's why we're excited about having that sandbox at ASU where we can do that, and hopefully we can also develop tools with our partners that can make elections more efficient and a better experience for the voters. But when you talk about AI and you get into a discussion, you start to get under the hood, we get to a word that Ethan raised, which is prompts. So Ethan, do you care to talk a little bit about that, the importance of prompts, and also what Microsoft has done to be helpful to folks to provide some tools to get better, frankly, as we learn AI and get better at writing prompts?
Yeah, happy to. I think for anyone that has experimented with some of these chatbots and large language models like ChatGPT, you have probably found that once the initial sort of shock of how much it can write wears off, when you start to get into a specific area of questioning or something you'd like it to create, sometimes you ask it for an output and you really like what it says, and oftentimes you might ask it for something and the output is both generically unusable but also impressively long. And that's not a great place, because you start to get sort of disillusioned with what's the capabilities here pretty quickly. And a lot of this comes to I think the sort of technical term would be prompt engineering, but writing good prompts and putting asking it to work sort of the right way, the best way to get the right outputs back. So I sort of two things to say here. One is there are sort of known methodologies for prompting these tools in a specific way to get sort of the best outcome. These are very general purpose technologies, and they will usually go to a lower baseline point than you want it to be, and you need to find a way to get it up to sort of the level or the right context that you need. I'd say generally, and sorry to take a minute here, but a good prompt typically has 4 components to it. A goal of what you're trying to achieve. So in let's say the context of writing social media posts for your office, for example, a goal of what you're trying to achieve. Hey, I'm trying to write social media posts. Some context about who you are. I work in this role, I'm the communications team in this elections office, etc. Specificity of what you want the output to be. I'm writing social posts for Twitter or X might be very different than I want long form content for LinkedIn. And then give it some past examples to learn your tone, your style, the way that you typically write. Here's 6 examples from the last month of social media posts my office has made. And if you have those 4 things in your prompt, you will probably find that the output is much more in line with your expectations than something else. All of that aside, sometimes it's a little hard to understand how to get started with prompting to sort of know what these tools may or may not be good for. So we have hosted a site with a lot of great input from the elections group and others that we are calling the Elections Prompt Library. It's a sort of free open website where we have a couple dozen different scenarios and examples with example prompts on how you can get started. All of these are meant to be just starting point templates, copy, paste, modify, and tweak to your, to your specifications. But we do have that prompt library there. If you want to go in and just understand how it might, these tools might work, some prompts to get you started on using them, anything from, social media posting to press engagement, interview prep. We have quite a bit around translation. Using AI to translate content in different directions for different reasons. We have some sort of advanced prompts that we can get into a little bit later, but even things around summarizing legislation and documents, election security, trainings, operations planning, just a few little things to get you started on this prompt website. I'll make sure that link gets out into the chat here in a little bit. I know that TJ, you guys at Elections Group have both informed the site that we have, but I think you also have your own around some flashcards and things like that.
Yeah, I put the flashcards. We got some of the words with AI are complicated, and I struggle even to understand them as I'm learning about AI. So I made flashcards and I put the link to it if anybody's interested, pulling from several different sources, but it's how I learn, I suppose.
Well, thank you, and thanks, Ethan, for those tools and advice and direction. I think it's extremely helpful. I know we've touched on some of the AI use cases out there in election offices, but Gretchen, Ricky, do you have some other examples that you'd like to talk about where you found AI to be useful?
Yeah, I can see Tom's question in the chat, and there have been some others. So, like, what is the actual benefit to AI? I use AI for a lot of different things. So the number one is like just it's easier to type a prompt in or question in and have it generate a draft of an email or something. And even if I change every word in that email, it gets me over the blank page syndrome of having to come up with something from scratch. So super helpful for just like moving me along that process of drafting something much faster. And then it also makes it a lot more positive than I would be if I were just writing an angry email to one of my, yeah, no. And then I also am using AI to help me write prompts for one of a low code database that we use. Sorry, not prompts, but code. So I'm actually using it to write JavaScript for me. I'm not a coder, but I do know enough to like read code and know what I want to do and how programming logic works. So it's made me work so much faster because like I said, I can just plug in, have it write the code for me, plug that code into the system, and it'll do what the database needs me to do. I don't have to go to talk to an IT professional. I can just take care of something in 15, 20 minutes. Also with that and like Excel formulas and stuff, I know when it gets to the last few weeks before an election, like I said, my brain just stops working, but I can go plug in like, what's the formula for this? And it'll just spit it out really quickly. And I don't have to spend that 5 minutes trying to get the right syntax of the parentheses in the right place and all that stuff. Like I said, we're using it somewhat for customer service for that AI on our website. But like I said, the chatbot, I really prioritize in our office. If you call our office, you will get a human being who picks up the phone when you call. Because by the time you've picked up the phone to call my office, you want to speak to a human being. So I haven't replaced human beings or that human customer service with any AI, but it is helping reduce the number of calls, which helps reduce staffing. Yeah, so I think those are some of the big uses I've used it for. Ricky, I know you have some others.
Yeah, my election director's in her 20s, and so not quite as experienced as far as legal stuff. And anytime she has a kind of a more legally sensitive email or communication she has to send, she writes it and then puts it into ChatGPT, and that gives her a lot more confidence to make sure that she's covered. She's not doing anything wrong. I use it a ton for research. When the executive orders come out or other things that might be really long, federal legislation, I will throw that in and say, give me a summary. And then I, of course, still go back and read it, but it gives me an immediate kind of rough glance at the information. We've used it for ballot proofing. We've put our ballot styles, loaded those up and said, here's the state code section and the guidance from our state elections office. Take those and run these ballots through and make sure everything is kosher. That doesn't replace our human work, but it does potentially catch things that our humans might not. One thing that we just started playing with is poll worker scheduling. We can throw in information. Here are the days that we need workers. Here's how many we need. Here are the tasks. And here's a list of workers who do each of these tasks. And this one can't do SIGVER, but they can do ballot flattening or other things like that. And then we have some cases where don't put these two co-workers together, the poll workers together. They don't get along. We did that and it didn't work very well for us. But again, going back to the importance of prompt engineering, we're going to retry it again using spreadsheets to gather and organize that information and see if it does a little bit better for that. The other thing that I'm thinking we're going to use it for is a review of our election system log. Those things, the logs of our election systems are massive. And I would love to run those, put that up into a model and say, look for words like warning, error, tell me the usernames who've logged in and the user times, give me a summary, look for any user logins outside of a certain time frame, and look for general anomalies. I think something like that could give me a lot of comfort knowing that the system hasn't been treated in an unusual way, or if it has, that I'm at least aware of it. Those are a few of the things on top of writing good limericks that we've used AI for.
Yeah,
Bill,
I thought of some more too. Sorry, can I? Yeah. So I'm
Please.
also using it for document processing or to help with document retention. So it can rename all of the files with the voter ID number to help with their document retention and delivering stuff to our clerk of the court after the election. Yesterday, I uploaded our poll worker manual into it to tell me what grade level it was at, but I also asked it to create an acronym or specialized term dictionary. So it could tell me what specialized terms were in there that we probably needed to define for them. And then I also used it to help me predict turnout for our primary in June. So I wanted to see, based on the first day of early voting, could you predict turnout for the rest of the election? And so I had it walk me through, once again, I didn't want to put data in there. So I had it walk me through different statistical models. How do I know if my prediction model was correct? And yeah, it walked me through all of that. So it was like an intern / professor. So yeah.
Bill, I going off of what Gretchen and Ricky were talking about, I think one good way to frame like the large language models is that they kind of democratize expertise in some ways. Like you don't necessarily need to know Excel and all of the formulas and the syntax and the parentheses and blah, 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 blah. You don't need to know Java. You don't need to know HTML. Of course, having like a baseline knowledge of all of those things is helpful. But if you view each of those things separately as their own language, you have a very good interpreter through some of these LLMs to get you much further along than you would be doing previously. But the second point on like overworked, overburdened staff, I don't think that these tools are yet at a point where they're replacing, or I don't think they're necessarily making things that much better for folks at the line level in many cases. So I encourage people, still advocate for your teams, like understand what these tools can do, but don't view it as, well, now you have the shiny new tool, your life should be easier. You still need to, I think, check in on people a lot.
If I can round out the group on
Please.
potential productivity use cases, there's a whole, I agreed with everything that was said, and I think those are all excellent. There are also some interesting and pretty neat productivity benefits you get when these AI tools are connected to your productivity suite, like your email or your files or your calendar. So the Microsoft Copilot or Google's Gemini or some of the others have sort of plugins that can connect to things. Every day, I ask my Copilot, hey, I'm having a meeting next week with these 3 people. Find us 30 minutes free on everyone's calendars. And getting just that sort of scheduling assistant to stop with the 4-day back and forth to do calendaring. I think that meeting prep is interesting, or day prep. I'll ask Copilot, take a look at my day and write me 2 paragraphs about every meeting that's on my calendar today, including like background communications I've had with the people that are in these meetings, to help just sort of with day prep and planning prep. And then there's some interesting things, like you mentioned, help with Excel formulas. In some versions of Excel, there is also Copilot built into Excel itself, not necessarily going out and asking a chat and coming back with the formula, but you can just ask some of the Office suite now to do some of these AI features. I will very often take a memo, a 1 or 2 or 5-page memo that we're working on, and say, hey, turn this into PowerPoint slides for me. And then, look, the PowerPoint slides aren't perfect and beautiful, I still have to go in and format them and make sure that everything is correct. I change the order a little bit, but instead of spending 45 minutes making a PowerPoint presentation, I spend 10 minutes editing, formatting, and get to go about my day that way. I'm also, just real quick, somebody asked in the Q&A to post the 4 parts of a good prompt, so that's coming your way in chat in just a second.
Great. Thank you, Ethan. That was just amazing. Those were an amazing number of use cases. And this is exactly the type of thing that we are trying to do with this AI and elections clinic and with our partners to surface these, to share these ideas, these use cases. One of the things and we have a question on this, and something that comes up a lot when you start talking about AI is what tools are good for what sorts of tasks. So wondering if you guys would care to comment on that, any of these individual use cases, which tools you find might be best for certain items.
I know I mentioned ChatGPT a lot. I really like that one. I use also Gemini. I use Copilot. I use Claude on my phone as well. One new product that I don't know how new it is, but it's new to me. It's called Notebook LM. And I like that. I've kind of been playing with that a little bit. The thing I like about that is you tell it what documents to look at, and it'll just look at those documents. And so for example, there was some concern about elections integrity. And so I took the op-eds and the letters and a couple of emails and a couple of reports and threw them in. And I said, take a look at this and write a study guide. It creates a study guide. It'll actually create a podcast with 2 people talking back and forth. It'll create a PowerPoint presentation with audio, great for training manuals for your poll workers. Anyway, it does that, but it only uses the documents that you give it. So Notebook LM is another great product. I find that Gemini seems to be a little bit stronger on the kind of the creative part, whereas ChatGPT and Copilot are a little bit stronger on the analysis and research type part. Those are some of the main tools that I use.
Who do you use for your limericks, Ricky?
Let's see. The best limericks have come out of a mix between Copilot and ChatGPT.
Great. Thank you for walking us through those. Another question I thought was very interesting, directed towards you, Ethan, was how do we feel about the ability of AI to help address phishing scams? You touched a little bit on that, but even broader on the mis and dis and malinformation that unfortunately we're dealing with all the time. Any thoughts or potential uses of AI there?
Yeah, I think whether or not you know it, AI is being used by the defenders on a lot of surfaces right now as it relates to security. So AI is a category of technologies that we are sort of talking about chatbots, but there have been machine learning algorithms around for decades that have been doing a lot of sort of computer magic behind the scenes and algorithmic sorting and things like that. This is a sort of significant, enormous leap in that technology in terms of large language models that have come out in maybe the last 2 years. But I think with the old algorithms and some of the new large language model technology, there are a lot of surfaces that are already using AI to help protect companies. Platforms are using AI to help protect users all over the place. Microsoft spam and phishing filters are significantly influenced by AI and large language models now, right? Where it used to be really common, it might have been easy to detect phishing in the past because it looked a lot like a Nigerian prince trying to sell you your fortunes. Like there were keywords you could pull out, but now with things being more specialized, you have to look much deeper at a lot of sort of heuristics and telemetry about the language, about the links that you're maybe being sent out to, the sense of urgency of the message. And large language models and AI are really good at pulling some of that out. And certainly the big players, the big companies are already using this on their defenses. And sort of ranking, sorting algorithms, et cetera, on social platforms as well. I think you would be surprised to see, even if it's not sort of marketed as a product that you might be able to buy, that a lot of the defenses and products today are highly leveraging AI.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. And obviously that's something that we've all been dealing with for years. And, to the extent that AI can help us, I know we all welcome that. So, Ethan, I wanted to come back to you as we, let's say we see with Ricky and Gretchen, very evolved, highly evolved offices in dealing with AI. But for those offices that aren't there yet, but want to get started, what would be some tips that you would give to them, kind of those first few steps to get going in this direction?
Yeah, I think if you want to get started, first of all, understand what the tools are. If you haven't gotten started yet, you've probably heard us throw around product names like ChatGPT and Copilot left and right on this call. If you didn't know what any of those were, just do a quick online search for like getting started with AI, and you'll get more reading material than you know how to handle on that, right? So picking your product and understanding what they are good at and what their data privacy protections and sort of reputation is, right? Start with a reputable tool that protects your privacy to get started. I think that's hugely important. To the question that was asked earlier, what are these tools good at and what are they, maybe not so good at? If you have an idea of how you think you might want to use some of these tools, pick one that is well suited for your use case. If you don't care at all about creating images and you'll never use AI to create images, it doesn't matter which one has the best image generation capability. You can go with something more general purpose, a Copilot, a ChatGPT, a Claude, something like that. And just find the right use cases in which to get started. I mean, we spent 10 minutes going over some really interesting and valuable use cases to get started, but I think that just picking that right use case in order to explore is really, really important. Sort of summarizing what we said too, but be aware of your legal and IT considerations, but also for those that might be on here that have anything to do with legal or IT, just be aware that people are using these. People are using AI today, no matter what the policy is. There was a study done by Microsoft, not election specific, but across all of our sort of customer base, that 75% of employees are using AI at work and only 40% are allowed to. So it's happening, and get started, pick a tool. You probably have something for free through work or a common tool today. It would be surprising if you have any sort of cloud email, you probably have access to that provider's sort of Copilot or chat agent, that their AI. Probably a pretty safe place to get started in that regard. If you're going to use it for work purposes and you don't have something that's already provided to you, I realize how this is going to sound, but pay for a tool. Usually the free tools are both not as good and not as secure. So I recommend opting for the paid tier sort of off the bat for some of these things. Usually it's fairly nominal, a couple dollars a month in order to get started on some of these things. So all of that, we have some great resource guides. I'm more than happy to send around the resource guides that Microsoft has on how to get started with AI, the elections prompt library, any sort of demos or use cases that we have. And I know that Elections Group and ASU also have sort of similar complementary materials as well. So there's no shortage of places to get started. For those of you that are Microsoft users, if you have Microsoft account reps that you work with daily, feel free to ask them, feel free to reach out to me directly. I work with and support elections offices every day. So, please do feel free to reach out.
Well, wonderful advice, and thank you for all the resources that you are making available, and we'll be sure to make those all available. As we're nearing kind of the end of our hour, I want to just go around the horn here and see if our panelists have any final thoughts. Okay.
No, I've given up
Yeah,
thinking.
Ricky.
I let AI do that for me. You know, just like you got to treat AI just like any technology. And we've been saying that all along. Trust but verify, audit the heck out of its responses and its product that it gives you. But I think if you just play with it and watch it closely, you'll find it is a tremendous, tireless, extremely knowledgeable tool that you can harness and use for all sorts of things. But again, it's a tool and you've got to make sure that it's working properly and don't over rely on it. And always use your own noggin. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I would say you can always start with something that's not work related, that's just personal, that's like, make me a shopping list for this recipe. And so, or something like menu plan for the week. So you can always go in where it's a really low stakes thing just to test the waters to see how you feel about how the whatever model you choose is responding to your prompts. So
I'll reiterate one of my earlier points, which is I think regardless of whether you're an excited adopter or a skeptic or someone who sees no future where you use these tools, I think as election administrators in a really dynamic and changing environment, you have a bit of a responsibility to the work that you do to at least understand these things at a basic level. So I encourage folks to, join webinars like this, have conversations with your colleagues, figure out where this fits into your life, figure out where it fits into your work. And again, going back to I have now been in several presentations where I have excitedly mentioned AI and not provided sufficient space for that skepticism. And I do think at the end of the day that deserves consideration, and you should be thinking about that as well.
I think that's a great point, TJ. Even if in our offices we're all excited about the use of AI, we may have voters, and we probably do have voters who have concerns about that. We'll have another webinar on that discussion. I know there's some people doing some great work in that area as well. I just want to thank all the panelists. Like I said, an all-star panel here. And I want to thank all of you for spending this time with us. Thank you for the incredible work that you do for the voters in your jurisdiction. And again, please consider us at the AI and Elections Clinic as a resource to all of you. We're going to be holding boot camps in the months ahead where we'll be bringing in elections officials, putting fingers on keyboards, working with experts, working with our partners to learn more about how AI can be used in your offices. So if you're interested, please sign up for those as those opportunities become available. But again, thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend, and hope to see you all real soon. Thanks again.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bill. Bye, Ricky. Bye, Gretchen. Bye, Ethan.